Hey everyone, my name is Amar Ali, and in this video, I'm going to share 3 exercises that I have found most helpful in getting better at drawing eyes, from the structure and values of the eyes to shading and believability. For context, these are some of my full effort eye sketches from 2 years ago, and here are a couple of my recent attempts. I know there's obviously a lot I need to learn to level up my eye drawing skills, but I wanted to make this video to share what has worked for me so far and document my complete study process from start to finish. So if you're interested, you can join me to practice along and hopefully improve a tiny bit together at drawing eyes. I'm going to start off this study session by copying the very first drawing from the Charles Bargue drawing course. I know this sounds a bit boring, but for those who don't know, Charles Bargue was a French painter from the 19th century that invented this incredible self-study drawing course consisting of around 200 drawings that are meant to be copied in the prescribed order, and in the process you learn the fundamentals of drawing including line work, values, and the human anatomy. To be honest, as someone who didn't get any formal training in arts, I was a little skeptical if copying these drawings was worth the time and effort, but my perspective completely shifted when I came to know that many greats like Picasso and Van Gogh have copied these exact drawings as part of their art training. The objective of this exercise is to copy the eye sketches to the same scale and as close to the original drawing as possible by starting with a vertical and horizontal guideline and recreating the details from observation. Occasionally, while doing this exercise, if I'm not confident about drawing a line, what I find helpful is to mark a couple of dots using the vertical and horizontal guidelines as a reference point, similar to how you solve a mathematical graph problem, and just connect the two dots together to give the illusion of a more confidently drawn line, if that makes any sense. One thing I'm reminded when studying this bark drawing is the importance of a good structure and how you only need a few strategically placed lines to convey the most complicated anatomy of the human eye with all its weird angles, shapes, folds, and contours. I'm guilty of rushing through the outline when drawing eyes, and studying this bar drawing helped me to slow down a bit and pay attention to the small details like the thickness of the eyelids that's evident at a certain angle, and captured that information within the structure of the drawing well before committing to any shading. No matter how many times I learn these things, I seem to fall back into bad habits after a while, and I feel I need to revisit these art fundamentals every few months to encourage myself to adopt good drawing habits. From my experience, having a physical printout placed at the same eye level next to your drawing helps a lot in comparing the reference and draw details to the correct scale instead of drawing from the phone or computer screen. So if you don't have this book, I suggest you to print out the free reference linked in the description before attempting this exercise, as it will make your life a lot easier. It took me about 45 minutes to draw this whole page, and it can of course take you slightly more or less time depending on your drafting skills, level of patience, and the level of accuracy you wish to achieve. But irrespective of your skill level, if you haven't tried copying a Bargue drawing before, I would highly recommend you to try this out as your first and let me know in the comments if you found it helpful. If there is one thing I could probably draw for the rest of my life, it has to be studies of Michelangelo's statue of David. It's just ridiculous how beautiful and perfect this thing is, and no matter how many times I study this timeless work of art, it never fails to amaze me. My overall approach with this drawing is quite basic. I start outlining the structure of the cast and try my best to ensure that the proportions and angles are reasonably accurate before getting seduced by the temptation to start shading. One thing I like to do when outlining is to mark out the key shadows in the cast, and this makes the whole shading process a lot easier because I clearly know the parts of the drawing that are meant to be in light and shadow beforehand. I just love those little heart-shaped pupils in David's eyes, but thanks to my ignorance, I have absolutely no clue why Michelangelo made them this way. So, if you have a plausible explanation for this, I would love to know more about this in the comments. The reason I think studying casts is a great way to practice drawing eyes is that the absence of color really helps you to read the shapes more clearly, and the way the flatness of the sides of the cast contrast with the different shapes around the eye really helps to make sense of its three-dimensionality. Ideally, you want to study from an actual cast, but if you're broke like me and can't afford to buy one yet, you can do what I'm doing, which is simply draw this beautiful reference that I've found on Pinterest while contemplating my life choices. It took me around 50 minutes to complete this drawing, and I think I could have pushed the values a bit more, but overall I'm quite happy with how it turned out. As obvious and boring as it sounds, if like me, you've been avoiding to do some eye studies from photo references like the plague, I hate to break it to you, but doing these are actually quite helpful. As my imaginary art friend often reminds me that the greatness that you seek is in the things that you avoid the most. I think eyes are often what make or break a portrait, so it makes sense to dedicate some time to exclusively study eye references because it allows you to observe eyes in a way that you probably cannot when drawing complete portraits. I, for example, mostly draw faces that are no more than a couple of inches big, so doing these eye studies allows me to draw eyes on a bigger scale than I'm used to drawing, which offers an entirely different perspective. Besides trying to improve my understanding of the anatomy and structure of the eyes, I try to make note of the subtle details that make the eyes look more realistic, such as the way the highlights reflect against the sclera and the glass-like reflection of the iris and the seemingly endless void of the pupils. It baffles me how impressionists like Sargent were able to convey these qualities of the eyes so beautifully in their paintings without being too precise with their brushwork. And if you enjoyed watching this video, please consider liking it and subscribing to my channel if you're new here. And I hope to see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching.